Aston Martin said a final farewell to this iteration of the worst car of F1 2026 with a typically awful Belgian Grand Prix performance. Now comes the first major test of the Adrian Newey-led team that desperately needs to restore its battered reputation and try to hang on to star driver Fernando Alonso. We know Alonso has a big decision to make about his future in the coming weeks, having said that he will consider his next steps during F1's August break. But he insists the debut of Aston Martin's B-Spec 2026 car, one it refuses to call a B-Spec but is in fact a B-Spec because it will require a new, lighter crash-tested chassis, will not be a major driver in his decision. Alonso has been consistently clear that he dislikes this energy-starved version of Formula 1 and revealed in Belgium he has turned to driving old F1 cars from his personal museum as a way to maintain his love for the sport while current F1 disappoints him so greatly. The nuance in Alonso's position is that he doesn't enjoy driving 2026 F1 cars, but he does still enjoy racing at the highest level. The clear implication here is that Aston Martin, so far cut adrift at the very back of the field, needs to haul itself into a place where it can at least fight with the midfield teams, or else Alonso will probably consider this whole thing a lost cause. He says he's trying to disassociate his decision from the team's underperformance because he recognises Aston Martin began 2026 on the wrong foot, as he puts it, and feels this isn't a true representation of the team's potential. After running around at the back all weekend at Spa, 4 seconds or more off the pace, and enduring one of the worst tracks of all for chronic energy starvation, Alonso is more concerned about whether he can stand much more of driving these underwhelming cars, even with staged modifications coming to the balance between electrical energy and combustion power for 2027 and 28. But even if the bias in his decision is more towards the rules and less about the competitive situation, that second part still has to be a significant factor for Alonso. We understand internal targets are suggesting Aston Martin's upgrade to be worth in the region of several seconds worth of lap time, maybe as much as 2 seconds. But that 2-second gain covers the entirety of the new aero package and car revisions, of which only the first phase is planned for Hungary this coming weekend, plus the single Honda engine upgrade that is due to arrive for the Dutch Grand Prix, the first race after the summer break. Even if absolutely all of that best-case scenario total pace had been available to Alonso at Spa, it wouldn't have transformed his weekend. He felt Aston Martin executed its qualifying session pretty well, not leaving obvious time on the table, and yet he exited Q1 in 21st place, 4.137 seconds off the pace, and 2.031 seconds behind the car directly ahead, the Cadillac of Sergio Perez. So an extra 2 seconds of performance would have left him fractionally trailing the slowest of the 2 Cadillacs. In the race, he finished 2 laps down and more than 70 seconds behind the Cadillac of Valtteri Bottas. This is why pre-weekend Alonso was urging everyone to remain calm about the potential of the coming upgrade, because he clearly knows the underlying weakness of the Honda power unit, even if it's improved slightly, will still hold Aston Martin back on energy-starved circuits such as Monza. And Alonso isn't getting carried away with whatever Aston Martin thinks it can deliver either, given how poor it's shown itself to be at car development. He must be seriously concerned about Honda's capacity to improve, given his awful past experiences and the similarities of his current situation with the McLaren-Honda nightmare he endured a decade ago. What Alonso wants to see this time is evidence the team has understood its problems and begun to fix them, what he calls a gain in trust on what we are doing. Alonso will undoubtedly feel he is still capable of competing at the highest level. So even if the Aston Martin Honda 2-phase upgrade delivers everything that's promised, and Alonso is suddenly capable of fighting for the final spot in Q2 with straggling Williamses or Haas's at certain tracks that aren't so power sensitive as Spa, so what? That's clearly beneath a driver of his standing and ability, and so he may decide he's done with it all regardless. He's in a sticky spot here because alternative options in F1 are basically non-existent. The top 4 teams are all locked down for next season, with Max Verstappen's McLaren flirtations more about what happens the year after. So the best Alonso can realistically target is a sideways move to a midfield team like Alpine. But again, what's the point in that? It's not going to create a path back to the front of the grid. And having waited all his career to work with a car designed by Newey, who has a history of his concepts coming good eventually, even if they start off in difficulty, why jack that in immediately unless it's for a guaranteed winning car? That said, if Newey's first Aston Martin can't be fixed in fairly short order, Alonso, about to turn 45, might run out of time to see this project come good. Should Alonso decide he's done with Aston Martin Honda, and therefore F1 itself in all likelihood, whoever steps into that seat, perhaps an ambitious and resurgent Sergio Perez or soon-to-be ex-Haas driver Esteban Ocon, will have to accept the fact that even a much-improved version of this car is going to be significantly off the pace, at least until the team's pace of development starts exceeding those teams such as Cadillac, Williams and Haas, who are further up the road. Ocon's good friend Lance Stroll is locked in at Aston Martin basically in perpetuity because of the unique ownership structure at that team, but that doesn't mean he isn't just as frustrated with the current uncompetitive situation as his teammate is. You might have seen those onboard videos of Stroll from Silverstone, where Stroll is driving through the high-speed corners with full steering lock applied. When we asked him to explain what was going on there, Stroll said he was deliberately provoking the car into that extreme state to show the team how badly it's performing. To put the woeful performance of the 2026 Aston Martin into context, it ranks comfortably among the absolute slowest F1 cars since 2010, when an influx of new and perennially cash-strapped teams joined the grid. To be further off the pace in relative terms than the woeful 2019 Williams, which arrived to pre-season testing late and featuring illegal front suspension, is a damning indictment of how poorly Aston Martin Honda is performing so far in 2026. As well as the high-speed aero stalls and understeer, Stroll lists medium and low-speed corner entry instability and braking, poor drivability, lack of power, car balance issues, and an overall lack of downforce as weaknesses in his current package. No wonder he says this car has no strengths. And there's a lot of pressure on the single engine update Honda plans to introduce for Zandvoort. We understand Honda's battling detonation problems in the combustion chamber and struggling to achieve the lower maximum compression ratio permitted in the regulations. Trying to find solutions in a cost-capped era is not something Honda is used to, and so that could further slow the rate at which it's able to chip away at its power deficit. We asked Honda at Spa if they also needed to work on ancillary components of the power unit, such as the battery or the MGU-K, but trackside manager Shintaro Orahawa indicated the internal combustion engine is his team's only focus right now. Although there's qualified optimism for what potentially lies ahead for Aston Martin, the team admits it's going to be tight on parts for the first phase of the upgrade in Hungary. With Newey throwing everything at ensuring the revised car is as good as it can be, lighter chassis, lighter gearbox, revised rear suspension, new nose and new aero package, Aston Martin has been aggressive with production deadlines for the new parts. Aston Martin's chief trackside officer Mike Crack said in the build-up to Spa that the team was working flat out to get the parts ready, but whether everything would be in place for Hungary was the $1 million question because the schedules are tight. But he said after the Belgian Grand Prix that he'd been monitoring screens showing the upgraded car coming together in the race bays in the factory, and now felt quite confident that we have everything that we need. Crack admits some of the current spec parts on Aston Martin's car are very tired now it's prioritised this new specification, but says the team has been working hard to remain focused on extracting as much as it can from the current package in order to be ready for when the car does take a step forward. Alonso indicates the team has finally found consistency over the past 3 races in terms of deployment and things that are normal for everyone else. And Crack says the mood inside the team is improving now it can see this tough time is coming to an end. But whether that tough time really is about to come to an end all depends on how powerful this much anticipated upgrade really is. The twisty nature of the Hungaroring compared to Spa should reduce the car's sensitivity to the Honda power unit's lack of performance and better allow Aston Martin to judge whether it really has improved its car with these planned aero revisions, suspension changes and lighter components. As Stroll suggests, if the car remains beset by balance issues and aero problems in Hungary, then Aston Martin could remain in a world of trouble for the second half of the season.